The court has decided. The BBI reggae has been stopped by the Court of Appeal. We commend the judiciary in the manner in which they are steadfast in the business of delivering justice to Kenyans. We allow those who celebrate to do so, as we say pole to those who have lost. I commend Honorable Raila Odinga for coming out and issuing a statement to accept the verdict of the court and to say that he's moving on. Today is too soon after the judgment, because although I watched the entire proceedings and I have a fairly good idea of what was read by the judges, it is too early to go into the details of that judgment. I choose instead to see what this has for 2022, the implication of this judgment on the elections of next year. I look at the implications it has for William Ruto. I look at what it has for Raila Odinga. I also examine what Uhuru Kenyatta needs to do, what he has not done right, and so on and so forth. And like I've said much later, I would then go into the details. On the onset, however, because many people have asked me and indeed challenged me to state my position and perhaps what I feel. I think what I feel is not important. My opinion has not changed. That this is wrong judgment, right from the High Court, affirmed by the Court of Appeal. It is a wrong move, but that is for another day. Today, I look at the implication of this to Raila Odinga. First, like I've said, we commend you for accepting and for saying you are moving on. We also commend you in the manner in which you have taken the whole thing. Raila Odinga would be seen to be the outright loser in this game. Many have argued, perhaps rightly so, that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta had to use the BBI for 2022. That this was a political infrastructure to come with victory in 2022 in order to actualize the things that are within BBI. So, many people will see Raila as an obvious loser. If that be the case, pole baba. But I want to turn this and look at it differently. Raila Odinga should view this as indeed a gift. The judgment by the Court of Appeal is, in my opinion, a blessing, not even in disguise, a straight blessing. It's not even a silver lining on a cloud. No, it's a straight away blessing. And this is how. And I invite Raila Odinga to look at it in that manner. I also invite other Kenyans to look at this critically in the way I suppose I'm doing. I begin with December 21st, 23rd, around there, when I was privileged to be hosted by Honorable Raila Odinga in his Bondo home. I had gone there for an interview for a TV station. I spent the whole day, and this is quite a privilege. I asked Raila Odinga whether he was going to stand for elections in 2022. He told me no. In that interview, anybody who watched that interview for TV 47 would see how hard I tried. I kept coming back to it with all my skills. Finally, he told me, I know what you are doing. I know you are trying to push me into saying this, but I will not say it. Now, behind the cameras, since this is a man I spend the whole day with, behind the cameras, I tried to find out if I could get it from Raila Odinga. I couldn't get it. But this is what I saw. Here was a man acting and operating under extreme restraint. He was under serious constraint. He was operating within very firm and clear beacons. He was a prisoner of BBI. He kept saying he will only come out after BBI. You can therefore see that this judgment should give Raila Odinga a sigh of relief. That is no longer a prisoner. He's no longer caged within the BBI. He's now free. Let me demonstrate this. Supposing the judgment had gone the other way, supposing their court of appeal quashed and set aside the judgment by the High Court, it would mean the day Raila would be free to say his standing would have been pushed. First, the other guys would have gone to the Supreme Court. While the thing is that the Supreme Court, he will still not be free to say that he wants to stand in 2022. It's like it was a covenant he had with Uhuru. I tried to push, and I could see the pressure he was under. After the Supreme Court, and assuming the Supreme Court were to agree, or was to agree with the Court of Appeal, you are pushing this thing to a referendum. And Raila would have to wait until after the referendum. Only then would he say he was going to stand. Only then will he be free to openly campaign for himself. You can therefore see what I mean, that this judgment is a serious gift to Raila Odinga. Secondly, the BBI itself, in terms of its content, had very many good things for the Mount Kenya region. 1 man, 1 shilling, more CDF, more constituencies, because the constituencies for the Mount Kenya region are not only those ones in the Gwema counties. You have more than half of the additional, even 3/4 of the additional constituencies in Nairobi are actually Kikuyu constituencies. So to that extent, you can see the big loss for the Mount Kenya people in terms of this BBI. In terms of the constituencies again, there are constituencies that had been given a lifeline, protected, and were to disappear in 2022 at the end of the sunset. Those constituencies that do not meet the quota. Nyeri has 3 such constituencies. Of course, Chepkati is giving them a lifeline and saying he has a window and is exploiting the lacuna in the law, the ambivalence of the law, because if you read the law clearly, the constituency should not participate in 2022 election. But he, Chepkati, perhaps amevaa jozi ya upande mwingine, he's saying he has up to 2024 to do the boundaries review. Only then should a constituency disappear if it has to. And most of those ones will disappear. Why? Because even as their populations continue to grow, you are not holding the other constituencies constant in terms of population growth. You are growing, so are others growing. So finally, you'll be erased from the political map of this country. Now, what am I trying to say? I'm saying the people of Mount Kenya will begin to see this conversation for what it is. They'll begin to see how the collapse of BBI that is being celebrated by William Ruto is injurious to them. And this is what will also help Raila Odinga as he, together with Uhuru Kenyatta, tries to convince the mountain people to give them the 40% they need. So you must look at it in that way. You must also look at it in terms of, if the BBI had gone through, Raila would have been under obligation to deal with the 5 principles in terms of those 5 slots. Where was Mount Kenya coming in? Now with only one position to give of deputy president, Raila Odinga is in fact safer than with the 5 positions, because then he gives that one position to a man from Mount Kenya. And then in those regions where Mudavadi comes from and Wetangula, he hopes Mudavadi will stand and Kalonzo will stand on their own, eat into those votes which Ruto would have gotten from those areas, from Ukambani and from Western, as he gets those he normally traditionally gets from Western. Because in Western, Raila has his traditional votes. And that was proved in 2013 when Mudavadi stood and Raila stood and got more than, I think, 70% or so of Western vote. In Ukambani, the votes Kalonzo would get will be the kind of votes most of which Ruto was going to get if Kalonzo was within a configuration with Raila. This time, he will get the votes which Ruto would have gotten, but not enough to deliver the victory to him. In fact, not enough to make any difference. So if you look at yesterday's judgment in that light, and I'm not making excuses like people say, that wait and hear what people say, I'm just making an objective analysis, just as I'm going to make one on William Samoei Ruto and another one on Uhuru Kenyatta. And therefore, objectively speaking, my eyes look and see that there's nothing for Raila to worry about the judgment of yesterday. So yes, this seems to favor Raila Odinga. But I have a message direct to Raila Odinga in form of advice. For you to take full advantage of this, a number of things you'll need to do. First and foremost is your messaging. You must ensure that much as you look stately the way you did, and I really congratulate you for that, on the Nakuru occasion, and the delivery of that occasion, and I think also in Homa Bay, that was fantastic. And you must keep up there. But in terms of messaging, you must avoid following Ruto where he's going. Keep off. Keep off completely. Secondly, you must also be aware that part of the reason why BBI got into problems is the way you people, the support you gave it. Your support for the process was peripheral, you and your brother. Secondly, when it comes to constituting teams to aid you, be careful. If you look at the BBI team, it was a lukewarm team. I have nothing against anybody in that team. But you could have done better. When occasions present themselves, as indeed they will, for you to look for men and women who will advance your cause, including setting up your campaign team and secretariat and all that, look beyond the traditional sources. Look for people. I am convinced much more serious people within the BBI task force would have foreseen this thing and forestalled them. So my advice to you, messaging, team formation, sourcing for talent is critically important. Sourcing for good people is important. Investing in a project, you will have to invest in whatever you do. From the sideline, even as he was not out to oppose BBI openly, Ruto must have given your opponents much more support than you and Uhuru gave the project. So going forward, ensure you get the right men and women for anything you do. Support that project, because you are not wanting in resources. You are not wanting in ideas as a person. Rend that project, your ideas, your intellectual support, your financial support. Because much as this thing is good to you, it has perception problems. So in the future, pay a lot more attention to a project you are in. For example, there are things in that BBI. If you had been a lot more keen, why did you put the ombudsman? It's like giving the judiciary, my friend Francis says, it's like giving the judiciary a knife, tell them cut yourself. They will cut you instead. Why do you put the ombudsman there? The 70 constituencies were handled carelessly. So I am very much, I very much doubt this BBI project had your full attention